to the EMS Wizard podcasts. We're your hosts, John C. Wilson and Terrence Sheehy, and joining us tonight on our podcast are our guests, Mr. Walter Meads and Mrs. Kim Miller.
Yeah.
Guests, welcome to our podcast.
Hey,
Thank you.
No, I wanted to tell, John Christopher, welcome back. We missed him last week.
Hey, I had an awesome fill-in.
Batman was here last week, so we're glad that John Christopher is able to join us this week.
It was a great fill-in.
There was a lot of good things. There are a lot of good, because sometimes you need a hero.
One thing I always want to make clear is I absolutely cannot stand it when people try to change their voice to sound like somebody else. I think it absolutely sounds ridiculous when you do that. It does sound stupid.
Yeah. That's what best friends don't do.
Stupid.
How's your voice feeling, John?
I mean, Dr. Pepper today, so I'm good. Anyway,
sponsorship opportunity.
Thank God we have somebody with some merit on the show with Kim Miller. Kim Miller is our the program director at Wake Tech Community College, and I'm actually excited for everybody to hear her story. I get a front row seat by being able to work with her on a consistent basis at Wake Tech and watch her. And people have known her for years in Central North Carolina, but I come to know Kim several years ago and immediately could see the impact someone like Kim has on people. And as skeptical as I am about learning things and meeting people and stuff, it's been real fascinating. So I was really excited to be able to approach Kim, and she said, "Yeah, I'd love to come on to the show and at least give some 2 cents of thought into things." So cool. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. And that's about all it's going to be worth is 2 cents, but
Hey, Kim, I'm the other guest. I understand that they make that joke with me and Mark, that we're also the guests. So we understand, you probably got 2 cents. I probably got maybe a half of a cent.
I think
I thought you were a staple too. So
no. See, I'm just a guest. See,
Mark has some jealousy going on apparently, because he has really been upset over the fact that we have this nickname for Walter, who's not with us, so much that he is now not with us tonight because he doesn't want to be the gentleman. He wants to be the gentleman who is not with us. So once again, another episode, no Mark. So ratings are going to be out of the roof this week.
Hey, Mark, I miss you. I have to deal with these 2 knuckleheads. Thanks for Kim for coming on to help give me some reprieve at least.
You're welcome. I was looking forward to talking to Mark. I heard he's from Duplin County. That's where I have most of my childhood was Duplin County. So I was looking forward to meeting him, but maybe another day.
The accent makes sense now that you say you're from spent time in Duplin.
Was Mark even born when you was raised in Duplin County?
Probably not.
I'm gonna go with a no on that.
Probably not.
Baby Mark.
So Kim, since you started out talking about your, where you're originally born and raised from, give us some information on your roots in the EMS and your journey kind of into EMS from kind of the beginning, inspirations, motivations, anything you want to tell us about, how did you get into EMS? What brought you here? How did you get there?
Well, I spent weekends down in Duplin County because that's where my grandparents lived, and that's where my dad was born and raised and spent every weekend he could possibly spend there. So that's where my Duplin County roots come from. But I was actually born and raised in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina, of all places. And my actual roots in EMS kind of started back when I was probably 5 or 6 years old. This TV show that used to come on, some of you know it, and some weren't even born when it was on.
Knight Rider?
What?
Knight Rider?
Knight Rider, no.
G.I. Joe.
No.
G.I. Joe.
No. I'm talking Adam 12 and Emergency Days. But Emergency, oh my word. And it still comes on if you can stay up that late at night. The older I get, the harder that is. But if you stay,
I found it on. Is it Bravo that it comes on? It's something that it comes on that
I think it's FETV.
Maybe that's what it says. It's something that it comes on like 10 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock at night. And to this day, I watch that show, but not like I did when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. But I knew good and well, even as a 5-year-old kid, I didn't want anything to do with firefighting. But fortunately, as I grew up and grew older and a little more experienced in life in general, it's like, well, yeah, you can be a paramedic, still don't have to be a firefighter. But the thing is that in Wake County, where I grew up, paramedics weren't even a thing until maybe around 1987, I think, is when Wake EMS, I might be wrong on that, but it was around the 80s when they actually became paramedics. And from that, there was another show that came along shortly thereafter. Well, maybe a little while later in the
Shaft.
80s. No.
Oh.
Well, there was Airwolf, and I knew good and well as I saw Airwolf, the helicopters were for me. But then there was Rescue 911. And
William Shatner.
Yeah, while the narration wasn't so much a great thing,
it was amazing.
The stories were awesome. And as I sat and listened to that, I could so see myself doing that one day. And it was time to go to college, and I knew I wasn't four-year college material, not at that point in my life. I knew I wasn't. So my parents were very supportive of, hey, Wake Tech works. So Wake Tech I went. And I tried another program at Wake Tech for a little while. It was medical lab technology of all things. And I knew real quick that was not for me either. So I'm like, well, I've always wanted to be a paramedic. They've got it. Why not? So I jumped into that program, and you're talking, I mean, you're looking at a C student at best, because I needed a C to play basketball, run cross country, play softball throughout high school. That's all I needed, man. I didn't care about any other, I didn't care above that. I could make A's in PE, and I went to a private school for a long time. I could make A's in Bible class. Beyond that, C's were fine by me. And so I got on a local EMS service. It was more of the rescue squad days down in Fuquay. And they were on about their third reorganization at the time, because for one reason or another, reorganization happened. And at the time I got on, they were the second duty truck that went out, because Wake EMS was the first duty truck. And so that is, as a volunteer with the Fuquay Rescue Squad, was how I started my EMS career. So it was a lot of fun. What it also did was provided me with some opportunities with that EMS truck, that Wake County truck, being there in the same building running first duty calls. I got to go ride with them a lot back in the day. And I'll tell you, as time goes on and we carry through this conversation, kind of how that impacted me and propelled me to my next level of EMS service.
So did you go get your EMT and stop and then work, or did you roll right into taking paramedic? Did you go get your intermediate? Which did you do?
So I was in the EMS program in the curriculum.
Oh, okay.
My parents were, you're going to have to go to school full time. That's the one thing you have to do to live in this house. Don't have to go to school full time. So I got into the EMS program, and it very much like it is now, EMT was the first 3 or 4 months of the program. And at that time, it rolled into advanced EMT was the next level that you could actually stop at and actually take a state exam. And then it rolled right into paramedics. So it was a continuous, I think it was a 6-semester program at that time. So long about probably about halfway into the advanced EMT class, a great instructor that I had there at Wake Tech at the time said, you need to go get on an EMS service somewhere as a volunteer and get you some experience and some calls behind you, because you're going to do great in this field. You just need the experience behind you. So I did. And I went down and got on the rescue squad in the local community that I had grown up in.
So Kim, I just want to, you were bringing up when paramedics started, so I just did a quick research. You were close, 1984 for Wake County with paramedics, according to Google. Where I'm from, we didn't start paramedics until 1993. So almost 10 years later, it slowly progressed east to be able to start that. So it's interesting to see how people go with that to be able to see. They were actually AIs in '88, so they did their first ALS call in February of '88. So, but paramedics were still almost 5 years after that.
Kim,
So
did y'all have a phone tree? Did y'all have a phone tree?
Yes, we did have a phone tree, and you didn't call 911 because 911 didn't start until after that. So yes, it's correct. Kim, do you remember when you did dial 911? When you dialed a 7-digit number?
I remember growing up in Fuquay. The local funeral home down there had these little calendars that they would give out every year. And on that calendar was a 7-digit number for police, fire, and EMS.
See, knuckleheads? See, I told y'all, knuckleheads. See, I told y'all. At least Kim understands.
I do understand.
Y'all do not.
Hopefully they wasn't giving those calendars out to their customers.
They were Fuquay. There was a good bet they were going to be their customers.
Job security.
Fortunately, they were not the first ones out, though. The funeral home was not the first duty truck out anymore.
No, they were the last duty truck.
Yes, they were. Yes.
Hearing you talk, all y'all talk about those years too makes me think of Mark, who is going to a better place, and I don't even know if he was with us in those 88.
He certainly wasn't with us.
Baby Mark. Yeah.
Mark, who wasn't with us yet. He was swimming.
So Kim, it's interesting hearing some of your history stuff where you talk about the schooling stuff, because I was introducing you a couple of days ago to some folks that I work with that hadn't met you before, and I commonly introduce you as one of the smartest EMS folks that I know. So, I mean, well, you've got competition with my first best friend John Wilson, my third best friend Walter Meads, and my seventh best friend who has gone to a better place, the gentleman. I mean, what do you think makes some of that? I don't know the great way to ask this, but hey, that C's get degrees, but do you think it was that interest, that passion? Because I feel like if I talk to you, whether it's a compliance question, whether it's a med math question, or just your years of experience and your knowledge, why you were really on fire with a lot of EMS knowledge. What do you think made that happen for you?
Like I said back earlier, in high school, I was a C student at best. EMS was something that just came to me. When I hit Wake Tech as an EMS student in that degree, I didn't have to touch a book, and I could roll out A's and B's. But reading the book, obviously, I developed a better understanding for it. And I think that probably my passion for the subject matter, I mean, anybody that reads subject matter is going to, that they love, they're going to totally, digest and just totally tear into it. For some, it's sports statistics. Some can, spout off batting averages and such. Can't do that, don't care, just like to watch it. But with EMS stuff, it clicked. And then it was just the fact that everything I read is going to and learn is going to somehow impact somebody's life in some way, shape, or form. So that was the knowledge base, the clinical portion of it that I think I just dove into really heavy. As time went on, and EMS, it's not a boring job by any means, but at the same time, you realize that there comes a point in time I can't ride this truck every day. I can't climb in and out of this truck every day. And quite honestly, I feel like there's more in me than running these calls. And I've seen people that work for EMS that's done it for 30 years. And it's like, but there's so much more that you have to offer, but yet this is what you're still doing. Why are you still doing it? And for some, that's fine with them. But for others, myself, it's like, I want more. I want to see what else I can do, what other impact I can make beyond just running the calls. So that kind of led me into wanting more when it comes to school as well. And, when I was 18, 19 years old and going to Wake Tech in the associate's degree program, I didn't have the maturity to do a 4-year program. I know I didn't. I didn't have I'd kind of been challenged all through high school with whether you've got this C average, and I couldn't have gotten a speeding ticket in the school zone for my algebra average, but yet somehow I passed because, well, let's just face it, most of the class was in that situation. So we got to pass through this. If I got to go do math at a 4-year school, I'm in hot water. It's not going to happen. And right up until I actually took a math class when I was pursuing my bachelor's degree, I'm like, well, this is going to be my C or D. And I ended up, it was statistics of all things. And of all things, that clicked. And I ended up with 100 and some average in that class. So, part of it is just, it was meant to be. When you're on the path you're supposed to be on, things do work out.
And you rolled right on through. You rolled right on through with your education, became a paramedic. You got some experience with local government EMS, rolled right into critical care, got to ride on a helicopter, was part of the Wake Med helicopter when they had a helicopter back in the days. I think you did a lot of their PR stuff and eventually made your way into education. I think that's what you're alluding to. And we could probably talk for hours about any of those particular things. But I have a particular interest in knowing how you felt. How did you feel challenged coming through in the time that you did to resonate with people? Did you feel challenged? Did you feel struggle? Did you have hurdles, barriers being a female in EMS?
Yeah, I came through at a interesting time, a very interesting time. So as I was, and we're talking early 90s is when I started, kind of getting my feet wet in the EMS profession. And I knew from very, very early on, you're talking police, fire, EMS, those are male dominated jobs. And will a female get on, particularly the agency I wanted to work for? Not much, if anybody that was new got on there at the time, unless they're expanding. Unless somebody actually quit, which never happened, they had to die to quit, or they were going to expand the service. And Wake County was growing at the time and growing quite a bit. So that's actually how I ended up getting on, was because of expansion. And the fact that being down with Fuquay Rescue and getting to ride with a lot of the Wake County paramedics, I'd made an impact. I'd made an impact on them, that I was teachable. I wanted to learn, and there was no degree of arrogance whatsoever, I don't think, about me when I got on those trucks. And then there was one February night that made the biggest impact of all. I was riding along. It was Valentine's. I don't remember if it's Valentine's night or not, but it was a cool winter night, and we were riding back. I'd ridden on a call with the EMS truck down there. Came back and we got into Holly Springs, and it was a dark and stormy night, but it was rather peaceful. And next thing I know, I was riding in the back. Fortunately, I was seat belted in with the stretcher strap and the old jump seat. And something happened. All I know is next thing I know, that truck's laying on its side and I'm hanging by that seat belt in the back. So we'd been hit, basically. We got hit. We got T-bone, truck turned over. I got out of the truck and went to see about the crew that was in the truck. And we actually started rendering care. And that made a huge impact on the system as a whole. And they were like, wait a minute, maybe we need to look at this kid right here that doesn't have any experience, really, very little. I was an intermediate at the time, the old intermediate. I'd gotten that level of credentialing. And maybe we better look at this kid here. So I was able to get on. At the time I got on part-time, I worked for a year, and you get some fast experience if you're going to work for Wake County EMS. And that was even in the early 90s. And I got to ride with some great mentors, some great paramedics, and learn so much from them. And then I got on full-time in 94, and I was one of 7 females that was on at that time. So I felt rather blessed that A, I was a female, and B, I was so young and really inexperienced, and yet they hired me. And so I thought I was probably somebody to have accomplished that in the day. And as far as challenges, I would say that my biggest challenge for EMS in general would have been in the neighborhood of promotion. As far as, dealing with harassment, I never did that. I never had that. But as I was going to say, a piece of the story I was going to tell that happened as I was working or getting a ride along with the Wake County truck down at Fuquay is there was a older gentleman that kind of, if he loved you, he loved you. And if he didn't like you, he still treated you right. But he loved me. And he actually just kind of took me under his wing, and he made sure nothing really happened to me. He made sure that I was at least going to get a fair shake no matter what. And then my brother started working for the agency a little while longer. And, nobody's going to mess with somebody when their brother's working on, a different shift, but working there as well. And then later on, my husband came along, and he happened to be a police officer at a major city in Wake County. And, so I didn't have probably some of the harassment issues that some females have to deal with, but there were still challenges as a female. And I would say one of the biggest ones would be like proving yourself, particularly with fire departments. They're like, all right, so I'm not carrying all this equipment for this girl. Let's see what she can do. And then as time goes on, you prove you're pretty strong and you can carry your weight and don't expect them to do anything for you. Then, it becomes more of a team. So, yes, there are challenges as a female, but I feel like my path was probably not as horrible as some might have been. If I were to talk with some of those 6 females that were before me, they might tell a little different story. But that's kind of my story.
Does that make you, or do you have folks that come to you? Because being in an instructional role now, I see that you have a lot of folks that come up and look up to you and have, they're looking for that guidance and looking for you to impact their lives and stuff. Does that make it, going the way that you went, does that make it easier or harder for you to mentor them?
I think it makes it easier for me to mentor them because, I think the Navy has this, you can go about it as, I don't know the military terms, but the Mustang way kind of means you came up the hard way, I think. And so I think I did in some ways come up the hard way, but I can certainly help them see that, what, and I've had female students come and say, hey, this happened and I don't really know what to do about it. And of course, back in my day, it was kind of a shake it off and just strive harder. Nowadays it's kind of more like, well, I don't really know what I'm going to do about that. I think I should, report this or that. Well, back in my day, you didn't tell on things. You just worked harder. I think that I probably did have to work harder to accomplish and get to the same place. So mentoring somebody, I think is, I enjoy doing it. And, I think I have some experience to give you and some things to feed you from my experience.
So Kim, that's kind of a perfect setup for my question of how do you think that being a leader in education is different than being in that street EMS, because you very much are a leader in our industry. You're a manager. Tell us how's that different in the education world, or if it is different. I mean, because sometimes I live that different life. I'm not sure that it is, but from your perspective.
I think the one thing I did that bridged the biggest gap for me, and I think, the asset that I can be, I think the biggest gap I've bridged that from street medicine to education is doing critical care, and getting to see both sides of how things work. I know that recently I was teaching a PHTLS class, and I fully understand what happens if you choose to go to the hospital that's closer. And once you cross the threshold of that hospital, whole nother set of things start to happen that you have no idea from the EMS standpoint. And if you choose to go to that hospital 10 minutes away, then you could delay that patient's care for an hour or more because of the things that have to happen on the other side. So I think that probably the best bridge I have had with that is I've really spent more years in the critical care side of things, or the hospital side of things, than I have or ever did on the EMS side of things. Both of them double figures now. So, I mean, we're still looking double figure years in both of them, but I've almost been in critical care twice as long as I was in EMS. So I think seeing the bigger picture but I think that both of them together form the bigger picture for me. And, I now have that 1,000-foot view rather than that 500-foot view of things. And a great supervisor that I have had in the past, maybe still have, has more than once said, you know what, you do what you can do for now. Don't worry about what you can't handle right now. It'll wait till tomorrow, and in the EMS world, that's not so much true. Right here, it's like, all right, this family is going to need something, and they need it now. In the education world, it's like, maybe we don't need it right this minute. Maybe we can stand back and figure out what will be the best approach to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that, Kim, what do you see the future of EMS and EMS leadership? What do you see as the future of EMS? Where are we going? What direction are we moving? What do you think we're going?
I think I've spent 5.5 years in the high school, and I was teaching EMT in the high school. And our students are different. Oh, they're so much different now. So the next generation of what's coming into our business, very different than what we did and what we have right now. And I really don't know the answer of how to, I don't think we can make them what we are and were. We're some tough cookies. We were pretty tough.
We were tough.
We were, and we still are. And, I got a cortisone shot in the knee just so I could get on a critical care truck a few weeks ago. So we're still tough. Today, they call out sick because, or don't show up because, I don't know, they got an ingrown toenail. I see the future of leadership having to change to accommodate the newer, younger generation, but we can't lower our standards to do it. So I think that we as leaders are going to have to come up with some really creative things, and we're going to have to do it pretty soon to sustain the quality of care we hope to get from our EMS service.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's the adaptation's got to come from the management, the leadership, the instructors, the educators out there. I don't think the workforce is going to be doing a lot of the adjusting. I think if we're waiting for that, we're going to have a lot of struggles with that. So there's probably a lot of techniques and things that are having to be utilized out there for being able to connect that way and connect tomorrow's EMS with today's world.
Well, and I think that's a perfect setup for Kim and you guys just dedicated, or not dedicated, but you've got that new simulation center out there in Wendell, and that, I think that is the future with where we're out there walking the street in the simulation center, the
Main
different
Street,
shops,
Main Street.
Main Street and First Avenue and Second Avenue, the elementary school, the prison, and being able to show some of your partners across the central and eastern part of the state. So, I mean, it sounds like to me that Wake Tech is leading the way with that, because I'm not seeing anything quite to that scale in North Carolina. And I tell you what, the only place that I've seen anything close to that would be Fairfax County, Virginia, so one of the largest fire EMS agencies in the nation. And here Wake Tech has that. So maybe that's part of leading the way and building that next generation.
Yeah, that place is, I mean, I first saw it when you first saw it. That's incredible. And a few years back, there was a guy that worked at Wake Med. He's moved on now to, I want to say he might be down in Florida, but Dr. Amar Patel, he ended up getting his PhD. But one thing, Amar came from the street. I mean, he was a paramedic. He did some flying up in Maryland. I think he flew up in Maryland. But one thing he got into, he kind of was at the bottom end of the sim lab at Wake Med. And it's pretty incredible as well. And great place to go just do some practicing if you can ever get in. But Amar was, I think, kind of the leader in simulate gaming, is kind of how he approached it from the gaming standpoint. Because what teenager, what young person doesn't love gaming? And I think you're absolutely right, Terry, about the simulation. That's, we learn how to use it and use it to its fullest capacity. I think that we will definitely be engaging some students. And I was going to kind of bring up that training in general, I think that we are improving with that in EMS training, is with simulation. Hands-on, even to this day, when I go to Con Ed, working in critical care, I absolutely love the hands-on stuff that we do because it's important. I can read something all day and I'm not going to retain a whole lot, but let me do it. Yeah, I'm going to retain that a whole lot more.
Well, I think it's been fabulous to take this journey. I don't know that any of us have realized this, but we have walked through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s stuff with Kim here. She officially predates us all. And so it's good to get that perspective of, I think Walter and I probably the oldest, coming in around the mid 90s, or we'll say early 90s as a stretch. I joined the fire department in 93. So, that's early 90s. And by that time,
Walter grew up in it.
Yeah,
I did. I
And
really
so-
honestly did.
Hold on though, but because I know our time is short here, but Kim, I've got probably one of the most important question that our listeners that are
Kim,
viewers,
don't do it. Don't do it, Kim. Don't do it. Don't do it.
they
Don't do
want
it.
to know,
Don't do it, Kim. Don't do it.
do you have a best friend? Who's your best friend?
My office mate is awesome. I love my office mate. Paramedic Brooke Cox. She might see this eventually. Brooke, shout out to you. My favorite supervisor I currently work for he's a Tar Heel fan, but
Yeah, don't do it, Kim. Don't do it.
Don't do it, because we'll never hear the end. But best friends.
It is on a camera. It is on a camera. His head is swelling. I can see it.
I got a great team of people to work with and work for.
If you've got a great team, it's like working with your best friends, and then there's a difference between a job and work. And so
I love they say find something you love, you'll never work another day in your life. Well, I've worked plenty of days, but I have a great team that I am blessed to be with this team, and you're one of them. I mean, I've worked with you before.
yeah. I mean, I learned a lot and an amazing experience with that. So yeah, that Wake Tech fan, good stuff.
Same with me. I enjoyed co-teaching with you.
I think it's awesome that she didn't answer the question on best friends, but I think it's important also that we teach people in our classes that you should rank your best friends. You have to rank them.
Well, my husband. I mean, he's been my biggest supporter. We've supported each other through public safety careers. We've ran calls together, and nothing like coming home in the morning after you've been to that fatal accident overnight, and who better to debrief with than who was there with you.
Whoa! That's the After Hours podcast. Never mind.
Yeah, well, we went to bed in the morning because we'd been there all night. So, but I mean, who better to come? I mean, public safety tends to draw towards other public safety, and so that's what I ended up with.
And you know what? It's worth even mentioning because we all talk about it, usually in our officer program, about how EMS people tend to go through some level of relationship issues and end up divorced. And to see a relationship that lasts throughout EMS, a public safety relationship that lasts, they're out there. They're few and far between, but
they are.
You and Hill are.
We've been married for 27 years. So,
there you go.
It's it's marriage. It takes work. It takes work on both sides. He's not perfect yet. He will.
You're working on it, though.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah.
John, you just wish you could say you've been at one place for 27 years.